Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
This program is suitable for general viewing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is the 10th of May 2024. A very good morning to you and welcome to Horizon TV. My name is Zamzam Ahmed and this is the Muslim Insight. Today we have so much lined up for you, but before that, let's get to the headlines.
Ningependa kutangaza ya kwamba shule zetu zote za Kenya zitafunguliwa Jumatatu ijayo.
Back to school. Schools to reopen on Monday 13th May even as the country continue to face massive flooding.
Tunashukuru kwamba sasa hivi tumepatiwa chakula na vifaa vingine tani 80 kutoka kule Uarabuni, kule Dubai, UAE, na tunaomba wengine waweze kutunga mkono kama serikali.
Floods donations. United Arab Emirates sends its donation of food and non-food items to support families affected by floods.
Even with the extensive government-led programs at both national and county level, we appreciate the need to receive and coordinate additional support for greater effectiveness.
Call for support. Government calls for more support for flood victims as death toll continues to rise.
Thank you so much for tuning in at Horizon TV. My sign language interpreter is Mariam Jamaluddin. Now on to our top story is that all schools will reopen on Monday 13th May 2024. The announcement was made by President William Ruto, who said the decision was made in consultation with the Meteorological Department, which confirmed that the rains will subside in coming days. Schools were set to reopen on April 29th, 2024, but the Ministry of Education postponed following massive flooding across the country. Speaking to the media, government spokesperson Dr. Isaac Moura said the reopening of schools will help reduce teenage pregnancies that is usually witnessed during the long holidays.
President William Ruto has ordered the reopening of all schools on Monday, May 13th, 2024.
Tumekubaliana kama serikali ya kwamba kwa sababu wale weathermen wametuambia ya kwamba sasa mvua itazidi na kwenda chini na hatutaki watoto wetu wakose nafasi pia ya term ya kusoma. Ningependa kutangaza ya kwamba shule zetu zote za Kenya zitafunguliwa Jumatatu ijayo.
The president said the decision was made in consultation with the Meteorological Department, which confirmed that the rains will subside in coming days. Speaking to the journalist at Nyayo House, Nairobi, government spokesman Dr. Isaac Moura said the reopening of the schools was timely and called on the parents to prepare their children to go to school.
The effect of continuing not to open these schools is dire, considering what we experienced during COVID-19. Because we had nearly, I think, if I'm not wrong, 19,000 pregnancies that were recorded, maybe more, for teenagers. So that is why we've made that decision, so that we are not going to have a situation where we also create another calamity or something that is more permanent.
According to the government, the decision to reopen schools came in light of improved weather forecast, indicating a reduction in heavy rains that had previously necessitated the postponement of school reopening.
Part of the reason also why we are making this decision is because we are anticipating, based on the weather forecast, that now rains are going to subside apart from the coastal region. Kwa sababu hatutaki kuwa na pia watoto wetu wakuwe pia wanasumbukana, wazazi washalipa hela za shule, pia wanaendelea kwa nyumbani washalipa school fees. Wacha watoto wasome, lakini zile shule ambazo zimeathirika tutaziangalia zaidi.
President Ruto has instructed that money for the reconstruction of schools infrastructure damaged by heavy rains be made available through the National Government Constituencies Development Fund. Schools were initially set for reopening on April 29, 2024, but the date was later pushed to May 6, 2024 due to disruption from the heavy rains. Reporting for Muslim Insight, my name is Mariam Sa.
Switching gears to matters health, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union has signed the return to work formula agreement with the government meant to end a strike that started in mid-March. KMPDU, which represents more than 7,000 members, went on strike on March 15th to demand payment of their salary arrears and the immediate hiring of the trainee doctors, among other grievances. The doctors' arrears arose from a 2017 collective bargaining agreement, CBA. Doctors were also demanding the provision of adequate medical insurance coverage for themselves and their dependents. Doctors said they were ready to comply with court orders to agree with the state on a return to work formula within 48 hours.
We have agreed that we are going to establish a presidential task force to look into the perennial issues that affect the health sector. Finally, now that we have a return to work formula, my friends, let us go back to work. All the names that you called me, I want to wash them away today. And should we as a ministry have erred in any way, today marks a new beginning. Yes. I want to urge all of us for now to focus on service delivery and make your rightful contribution to realization of UHC.
And that means the strike that began on 13th of March 2024 has been called off. The government has insisted to us that there are different government and there are different persons in office, that we need to believe in them, that they are not conmen. And therefore we have decided that despite having said and stated that we do not go home with promissory notes, we have decided to take the promise for the last time. But as we take this, I must say that one of the fundamental issues, that is the matter of doctor interns, is still pending. This matter was filed in court in Eldoret. This matter has been part of the conversations. And we could not come to a particular agreement because the union was for the opinion that the doctor intern must be posted immediately as per the CBA, while the government was for the opinion that we have to await for the court litigation that is ongoing in Eldoret before we come to an agreement. But there we have a joint caveat that as that is going on, all the doctor interns, that is the medical officer interns, the pharmacist interns, and the dentist interns will have to wait a little bit longer. We have agreed on a 60 days period that they will not be posted, but we'll be having conversations on this issue.
Elsewhere in Mathare, about 13 people affected by floods in Nairobi's Mathare slums received mattresses and blankets from Muslim organizations in Nairobi. Following the heavy rains witnessed across the country, many slum dwellers have been affected by floods, leaving them homeless. Jamia Mosque Nairobi, in collaboration with other Muslim organizations, distributed the mattresses and blankets to the affected families at Al-Amin Masjid in Nairobi.
Muslim organizations in Nairobi have stepped forward to aid flood victims in the Mathare slum, offering much-needed support in the form of blankets and mattresses.
Tumewapa blankets na pia mattresses kulingana na ile idadi ya familia ambayo wapo. Wengine tumewapa mattress 3, blankets 3 kulingana na ile idadi ya familia ambayo tumekuwa nayo. Na pia familia 13 pia walikuwa wakiishi kando ya mto, wamekuwa relocated to higher grounds. Wamelipiwa nyumba, na inshallah pia tunaangalia kuna nguo ambazo zimekuja, watu wametoa nguo, watu wametoa vyombo, pia inshallah tutakuja tawapa hizo, tawakabidhi waweze kuja kuendelea na maisha yao.
The recent heavy rains in Nairobi have caused devastating floods in various parts of the city, including the densely populated Mathare area, leaving many residents displaced and in urgent need of assistance.
Na kwa sasa tumewalipia rent ya mwezi mmoja ya kujishikilia kwa sababu hatuna ile uwezo mkubwa ambao tunaweza lipia kama miezi 3 au miezi 4. Tumewalipia kwa sababu kwa ajili ya watu wengi, kwa watu takriban watu 50 ambao wameathirika, kwa Waislamu tu peke yake, na wasiokuwa Waislamu ni wengi, hawana idadi. Na kwa sababu ni watu wengi na hata tumesaidia Waislamu na wasiokuwa Waislamu, hiyo ndo maana tumefanya watu wachache, kwa sababu tuweze kuwasaidia watu wote kwa ujumla.
Speaking during the distribution exercise at the Al-Amin Masjid in Nairobi, Abu Ayman, a community mobilizer, said they are working closely with other Muslim organizations in order to reach more flood victims as many parts of the city have been affected.
Jambo ambalo tunaomba inshallah kwa Wakenya wote mchangie katika hii program ya kuja kuwafariji watu walioathirika na mafuriko inshallah. Hilo ni ombi letu, mchangie inshallah kwa hali na mali inshallah.
Many Kenyans have lost their lives, businesses ruined, and others left with nowhere to call home. The government has set plans to help the victims rebuild their lives through the construction of new homes in Nairobi's most affected areas.
Alhamdulillah, nashukuru kufikia sasa nimeweza kupata rent, nimeweza kupata nyumba. Alhamdulillah, kwa sasa vile nimepata mattress, naenda angalau kuanza maisha vizuri, nitakuwa na mahali pa kulala. Na vile nitakuwa na vile naweza at least kujikimu kutokana na hiyo baridi kali.
Kwa vile mmeweza kutusaidia, na ikiwezekana pia mnaweza tembea huko pia mturekebishie msikiti yetu pia ambapo pia imeharibika.
The Muslim organizations who are part of the initiative included Jamia Mosque Nairobi, Al-Mu'min Foundation, Parklands Mosque, Masjid Al-Amin, Masjid Rahma, Adams Mosque, among others.
Thank you so much for that report. Still on matters of support, Kenya on Friday received 80 tons of food and non-food items from the United Arab Emirates to support those affected by the ongoing floods in the country. Government spokesperson Dr. Isaac Mwaura called for more support from both local and international as the number of the affected continue to rise. The consignment, which was delivered in 2 aircrafts straight from UAE, contains flour, rice, pasta, salt, cooking oil, powder milk, dates, tea, fish and sugar, among other things.
The consignment was received by the Cabinet Secretary for East African Community, ASALS, and Regional Development, Penina Malonza, from the UAE Ambassador to Kenya, Dr. Salim Ahmed Al-Naqbi, at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. The relief aid will be distributed in collaboration with the Office of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, which coordinates aid from international development partners.
Tunaomba ufadhili zaidi kwa kutoka nchi za kigeni. Tunashukuru kwamba sasa hivi tumepatiwa chakula na vifaa vingine tani 80 kutoka kule Uarabuni, kule Dubai, UAE, na tunaomba wengine waweze kutunga mkono kama serikali.
Cabinet Secretary Malonza said the food aid is a major boost to government efforts to support victims of the floods, noting it will go straight to the needy. UAE Ambassador to Kenya, Dr. Salim Ahmed, said UAE will continue to stand in solidarity with Kenya during these challenging times to provide timely assistance to those in need. According to government spokesman Dr. Isaac Mwaura, the government has put in place measures to help those affected by providing cash transfers, affordable housing, and social housing initiatives.
Those affected will be considered for social housing on a priority basis, and we are taking data. The State Department for Housing is leading this, of course working with the Ngao officers, so that then we are able to know how they are going to be accommodated.
More than 100 people have voluntarily relocated from areas like Dandora, Mukuru kwa Ruben, and Soweto in Nairobi County.
County ambazo zimeathirika zaidi ni Homa Bay, Kajiado na Nakuru. Homa Bay, Kajiado, Nakuru, Mandera na Nairobi. Na hususan hapa Nairobi. Na serikali imeshaanza kutoa hawa wenzetu kutoka manyumbani mwao, watu 1169 na watatu wameweza kuondolewa na wataweza kusajiliwa katika mpango wa nyumba wa serikali, na hakuna mtu yoyote ambaye ataruhusiwa kurudi katika karibu na mito 17 ya Nairobi. Kwa hivyo wale ambao tumeanza kuona watu wakianza kupiga siasa eti kujaribu kuonyesha kama serikali haifanyi kazi.
The Ministry of Interior and National Administration said that a total of 115 camps have been set up across 19 counties, hosting over 27,000 people. Reporting for the Muslim Insight, Saida Aboud Bilay.
Moving on, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says the government is streamlining response to the floods for efficient and effective distribution of humanitarian support across the country. Speaking when he chaired a National Disaster Response Steering Committee and Development Partners meeting at his official residence in Karen, Nairobi, the DP said the government focus is to reach as many affected people as fast as possible. He called on well-wishers to join hands and support the government's efforts in helping the flood victims.
The Deputy President on Monday said a whole-of-society approach is being adopted to ensure better coordination as the calls for help intensify to help the most vulnerable families.
Despite the overwhelming impact of recent events and the pain and agony of families who have lost loved ones, homes and livelihoods, we have observed that our humanity and the natural desire to extend a hand of generosity to our brothers and sisters has not been diminished.
The Deputy President said the various channels for contribution to the response efforts have been activated, calling on the local and foreign partners to continue with their support.
Our disciplined forces have been deployed across the country to back up the first responder teams and clear roads and waterways. However, even with the extensive government-led programs at both national and county level, we appreciate the need to receive and coordinate additional support for greater effectiveness. In this regard, we are calling on our development partners, the private sector, non-state actors, and individual well-wishers to contribute in cash and in kind to the noble efforts to support those most affected by the floods, landslides, and other related challenges.
The Deputy President appreciated the support by partners, including 40 metric tons of food and 34 metric tons of non-food items from the United Arab Emirates towards easing the pain of the affected.
Last week, the National Disaster Response Steering Committee technical team identified and categorized the most urgent areas requiring expedited support. These include food assistance to affected families, non-food items, water treatment to mitigate the risk of waterborne disease outbreak, emergency housing solutions, essential medical commodities, and repair of critical infrastructure. We see an opportunity to jointly coordinate extended support to these areas through a joint-up action involving government, development partners, the private sector, non-state actors, and individual well-wishers.
The United Nations Resident Coordinator Stephen Jackson said the foreign partners have raised 900 million shillings as of Monday to boost response and humanitarian activities across the country and are looking for more support.
So shelter and non-food, nearly 65,000 people reached already. Hygiene promotion, nearly 15,000 people. Water, sanitation and health, nearly 120,000 people in Garissa, Tana River, Wajir, Mandera, Lamu, and we've pre-positioned stock for another 160,000 people. And I think cholera has already been mentioned. We do know that there has been a small outbreak already in the northern part of the country, and we're very active in that space.
Elsewhere, the British High Commission in Nairobi has announced an emergency funding uplift of over 140 million Kenya shillings to support flood relief efforts in Kenya. The funding will go to UNICEF for emergency humanitarian relief to those most impacted by the extreme weather. The funding will enable the provision of cash assistance to approximately 6,900 households in the most affected counties. UNICEF will also provide urgently needed health, nutrition and sanitation services through integrated outreaches, which includes the provision of safe water for drinking, temporary sanitation facilities and hygiene kits to families displaced by the floods. Salma Salim, The Muslim Insights.
Moving on, For Life Solutions and Amref Health Africa are working together in life-saving activities that include provision of clean drinking water and training to the flood victims in the country. The collaboration is aimed at combating waterborne diseases. The government has announced over 47 cases of confirmed cholera cases as a result of the ongoing heavy rains and flooding.
We need to educate our citizens on the need for consumption of safe water, treated water, and also sanitation. Because one thing which people should understand is that clean water and sanitation is a human right, and it is very essential for your health. So in order to attain SDG number 6, that is access to clean water and sanitation for all by 2030, we need to promote technologies which are simple, which are affordable, and which are easy to use, so that our people can access these technologies, at home, and they can be able to consume safe water, so that we can improve on our human health.
Prevention is better than cure, of course. And so one of the main things first is what we said about working with community health promoters to educate people. Information, they say, is power, but what you do with that information is the real power. And so what community health care workers do is they are assigned a particular households, and they're able to do education in terms of how do you protect yourself from getting diarrhea. So issues around hand washing, issues around water treatment, issues around just taking prevention and vaccination, especially for vaccinable, those diseases that are immunizable. So from the children, the routine immunization. And we saw last year, because of the breakout of cholera in Kenya, there was even cholera vaccines. And so these are things that can help communities protect themselves from actually getting sick, but ensuring, so the activities around ensuring environmental protection, wastewater management, and also sanitation and human waste management are all critical towards preventing waterborne diseases and other diseases that can happen at community level.
We truly appreciate the donation of 1,000 sour bags to go towards the public health emergency response, and specifically ensuring safe water for some of the families and households that are displaced across the country. We'll distribute these bags tomorrow to communities here in Nairobi and Mai Mahiu, and possibly some in Tana River. We are calling upon all stakeholders, wherever you are in this country. Kenya needs you, the people of Kenya need you at this moment. Whatever it is, whether food, blankets, mattresses, cash, and various commodities and things needed during this crisis, this is a time to offer support to your fellow Kenyans.
Kenya and Somalia have committed to deepen their bilateral relations and economic ties in trade and investment with a view of boosting the economy of both nations. This is after a meeting between Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and Somalia's Prime Minister Hamza Abdi Bare in Nairobi on Tuesday. Kenya and Somalia further resolved to work on removing barriers to facilitate the movement of people and goods, promote investment, and open up new markets of mutual interest. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said the enhanced bilateral relations will advance shared economic prosperity for the benefit of the Kenyan and Somali people. Somalia was last year admitted into the East African Community integration process, which will see it benefit from the EAC's regional infrastructure projects such as roads, railways, and energy networks.
Your Excellency, Kenya and Somalia enjoy warm and cordial relations deeply rooted in a shared history, common socio-cultural heritage, a shared border and commercial ties. Our bilateral relations are driven by goodwill and the determination between our two governments and people to work together towards enhancing and expanding the scope and breadth of our relations. I am pleased that the positive outcome of the third session of the Joint Commission of Cooperation lays a firm foundation for sustainable future engagements between Kenya and Somalia. It is through dialogue and partnership that we can address these challenges and harness the opportunities for the benefit of our people. Your Excellency, this meeting accords us an opportunity to engage on a number of issues critical to elevating relations. I would like to propose we engage on political consultation, admission to the EAC, trade, security, and Kenya diaspora in Somalia.
We are paving the way for a more integrated future, removing barriers to trade and creating a seamless flow of people, goods, services, and ideas to capitalize on and complement our respective resources. On security, we stand united against the threats of terrorism and transnational crimes, committed to safeguarding the peace that is the right of every East African citizen. I am particularly pleased with the advancement made in discussions, agreements reached, and the memorandums of understanding we signed during this session, as well as agreed minutes between our two nations. Let us ensure that the commitment made are commitments kept and agreements are implemented in full.
Last but not least, on matters that really affect our youth is that youth leaders from Mwea and Makima wards in Embu County have called on the government to partner with organizations that are in the forefront in the fight against drugs and alcohol abuse. They said a lot of sensitization campaigns on dangers of drugs and alcohol abuse need to be carried out, especially among the youth who are increasingly getting hooked to the vices. Speaking on Sunday during a youth sensitization and empowerment seminar at Kitololoni grounds in Makima, the youth leaders called for goodwill and support from both national and county governments in the war against drugs. The meeting was held in partnership with Canada alongside other institutions that also sought to assist them to set career goals as well as business and investment ideas.
Tunaweza kupasha wito kwa serikali na kwa viongozi na pia kwa viongozi ambao ni wa community apart from the political leaders ambao wako na uwezo. Pia kuna NGOs tunaziomba ziweze kujitokeza kutusaidia, because as far as it is concerned tunaweza tukafanya mambo lakini we cannot do, especially when it comes to resources. Kwa hivyo tunaomba partnerships from the government na pia support actually, because when the government is supporting us pia tuko na nguvu. Tunaomba wazazi waweze kuachilia wanafunzi na youth pia, na pia wale youth ambao pia wanaweza kuwa wamaliza shule, they come together ili kuja tuweze kusaidiana. We do this thing together.
My plea to government, I request the government to be partnering with associations, organizations which are already established to ensure that they do as much of this program, because we have seen that we need such of programs that deals with drug abuse in different sectors. So watoke pale juu, let them do programs kule rural areas in these sectors kama hizo tumefanya, na kule pia ambapo hakuna serikali karibu, let us be able to teach or educate this to young people as many as possible to young, na pia they should be sponsoring these programs which are they are made for the youths, which are waonekane they are part of it, of them.
Now that brings us to the end of our first segment of the Muslim Insight. The Muslim Insight takes a short break, but when we come back, we're going to have a full discussion on matters of education and floods. So stay tuned.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Kuna faida gani twapata tukimjua Mtume sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Nabii mwenye ushawishi mkubwa duniani.
Tukizikwa tukitiwa kaburini, tutaulizwa haya maswali matatu: man rabbuk, ma dinuk, man nabiyuk.
Sheikh Jamaluddin anakupa simulizi.
Huwezi kumpenda mtu usiyemjua
na kutambua sunna zake,
lakini ukimjua na ukimtambua Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, mapenzi yako yatazidi.
Ufahamu Rasulullah, familia na maswahaba wake. Tazama sira ya Mtume kila Jumatatu saa 1 jioni kwenye Horizon TV.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون.
Enyi mlioamini, munapoitwa kuhudhuria swala ya Ijumaa, fanyeni haraka kuikimbilia, muache biashara zenu, hilo ni bora ikiwa mwelewa.
Isikilizeni kwa umakinifu khutba ya Ijumaa
ili uzidi kujenga imani yako na kupata faida nyingi ya siku hii.
Coming to you every Friday from Jamia Mosque, Nairobi.
Live on Horizon TV.
Chenye uongofu kilichoteremshwa kwa mpangilio maalum.
Sura ikiitwa Madania inamaanisha iliteremshwa Mtume sallallahu alaihi wasallam alipokuwa kwa Madina.
Kila sura imepewa jina rasmi na sababu zake za kimsingi.
Inaitwa Suratun Nisa'il Kubra, sura ya wanawake kubwa.
Fahamu sababu za kuteremshwa Qur'an na matukio ya kipekee katika utaratibu huu.
Asema Mwenyezi Mungu wa Nuha, nakumbukeni kisa cha Nuh, tumpomlingania kabla, tukamjibu yale mambo aliyoyaomba, tukawa ni mwenye kumwokoa yeye na ahli yake.
Ungana na Profesa Muhammad Salim Badamana katika malengo ya Qur'an kila siku ya Jumapili saa 11 kamili jioni katika Horizon TV. Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن
خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back and thank you so much for staying here with us at Horizon TV. This is our second segment of the Muslim Insight. As usual, we normally have a conversation. And today it is really a blessing day because you're going to have two sessions. One on Friday Bulletin review as well as in a conversation concerning education and floods. And joining me here today with my two guests is Basro Ali and Sheikh Salim Charo. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Welcome to our studio.
Shukran.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good.
MashaAllah.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing great. So, like I said, we're going to have a Friday Bulletin review as well as a conversation towards matters education and floods. And if you can look at the Friday Bulletin magazine, we're going to have on page 2, we have President Ruto announces schools to reopen on Monday, May 13, because that is something that is affecting most of our students. So we decided maybe we start with that one. And our conversation or our topic today is matters education and floods. Maybe we can see that President Ruto announces that students or schools will reopen May 13th. Initially, the school was supposed to be open on 29th of last month. Then it was rescheduled to 6th of May, this week on Monday, but it will be reopened next week. What do you have to say on matters of schools and the reopening?
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. And secondly, what I will say is that I think this hitch came up when I think that when the government decided not to listen to the weatherman, and because we experienced rains, they just came indefinitely. They just came. There was that. There was that advice by the Kenya Meteorological Department, and it got to a point where at some point the government had not taken any initiatives until now. We saw when the schools were to be open, the floods, and then it was rescheduled to 6th, and then indefinitely they postponed the school reopening, and then later now to a surprise of many parents, then it was announced that on 13th of May that schools are going to be reopened. It shows, I think it will be important to mention that I think number one, the government needs to be to have that sort of coordination, and we saw last year when also there was predictions of El Nino. We saw the pool, and there was sort of a bit of competition. At some point the president said there is no El Nino, and then later, and then all of a sudden rainfall, and then it ended, and then now from from March, then we saw these rains. So I think even for the parents it's a bit challenging, but what is required, number one, is because these are experts, we need to listen to them, and it also gives parents time also to plan for themselves, because currently, as you hear, when the president made this announcement that today it will be a public holiday, and on Monday schools will be reopened. You had most parents saying that tushakula school fees itakuwaje, you know, so because even from the government we are not getting what is, you know, a proper directive. So I think it's up to the government also to have this in considerations, and also I think one more last thing is that they should also think on those places which are you know, highly affected by floods. Also they should be put into consideration. They should not also be hurriedly you know, asked to reopen schools because of the school calendar and so on. They should, because lives also matter a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
Now maybe to you, Madam Basra, we're talking about the floods affecting schools, the reopening, or the decision of the reopening of schools. Maybe in the perspective of a mother, how safe do you think your child is, you taking your child back to school?
Okay. First and foremost, thank you very much, Zamzam, and your colleague Sadia, for calling me over to Horizon. I always watch and really enjoy your Muslim Insight program.
MashaAllah.
But today I'm glad that you have
indeed
somehow gotten me into your studios. First and foremost, I would really want to condole with the families and the people who lost their lives because of these floods. And I appreciate the fact that the government has seen this day as a holiday for us to mourn our fellow Kenyans. Of course, at the global level, you have seen the way the country has been praying and also really mourning with other people around the world, in Palestine, in Ukraine, in Russia, and all these wars that are going on. So we really feel sad that it's a time in this world where there's a lot of things that is happening, and it has come closer home through these floods. And we really condole with the families, especially from Maimahiu and those ones in Mathare and other areas. The most important thing that I would really want to talk about today in terms of rescheduling of schools and all that, I think it was really a very well thought process and decision, because for these schools to be postponed, it can even be postponed for a year as long as the safety of the kids is, and the children and the parents is not in order. But if through the multi-sectoral, which I believe it is their approach that they have, the government and the president in particular has thought that it is important to now open the schools, we know that it is not a blanket effect. There are some parts of the country which is extremely okay. They don't have very major floods, and there are parts which have really been somehow affected, and there are parts which have really seen the brunt of this climate and floods going on. As a climate expert and somebody who has worked in climate adaptation and mitigation for a long time, we have really been doing a lot of publication, and one of my publication is on forced migrations and why it is going to be a reality for the people in developing countries, especially in Africa, to really heed and listen to what their meteorological departments and their governments and their institutions are telling them. Because we cannot work in a country where people cannot listen to decisions. If you are told to move, please move. If you are told that in Homa Bay, Kajiado, those areas of Nakuru, Maimahiu, there is a problem, and you have been told, please do not go to the valleys. It is just a high time that as a country we come, but that will be a long term. Of course, you have just asked a question. There is the middle level, there is the immediate. Like now what we are talking about is the safety of the kids okay? That is the immediate thing. And then we will have the middle level procedures and precautions. And then we have the long term, where people really have to come to make decisions on whether I am used to staying in that place or not. If you have been told by the forecasting position that this is a dangerous zone, we just have to listen to the situation.
Now, Madam Basra talked about different counties affected. It's not that all counties have been affected, Sheikh. But the decision that have been made by the President that schools will be reopened on May 13th. And on the other hand, Minister for Education, Ezekiel Machogu, says that some counties that are flood-affected areas may not reopen school on Monday. Maybe we're talking about equality, or maybe leveling all the students that they should be reporting to school. What is your take on that? That other students will be at home, other students will be at school on Monday?
Yeah, sometimes we cannot just give a general or we cannot just blanket everything and assume that everything is okay or everything is not okay. So I think what is required is those who are in safe places, they should proceed and continue with their education. And those who are affected, I think what is required there is to put into consideration their safety, because human life and dignity comes first. So I think that's what should be done, because if there is an area or some counties which are highly affected by floods, so those are the ones who should at the moment they should wait, and we should not be in a hurry because of maybe the syllabus, and maybe they are not be going to be having the maybe some will be ahead of others. I think their safety should be put into consideration. I think that that's the most important thing that that the government has also taken into consideration. Yes.
Now, Madam Basra, let's look at the figure or the observation in terms of the community at large. Maybe you, as the director and founder of Women in Borderlands, maybe what is the role of community in the decision making of the reopening of school amidst floods?
Thank you very much, Zamzam. And I think what I really want to emphasize is what Sheikh Salim has just talked about in terms of looking at the situation and checking if there is a county that is really having a lot of this issue, and there is a forecasting position that the meteorological department is saying there could be floods. Then, of course, we will not send those children to school. And that is where the issue of individual decisions as parents, the Parents Teachers Association communication program comes in. And the most important thing, I think, which I've also picked from what Sheikh is saying, is that we have always talked during the climate change adaptation, which took place in Kenya. It was early this year. Yeah. Yes. The climate change conference. Summit, yes, the summit that took place. There was a lot of information around that area. And actually, as a country, if we can follow in terms of community awareness, sensitization, early warning systems, learning and the learning and sharing process, reflections of what we have seen in other countries, maybe we will not even be talking a lot about our infrastructure in schools, our infrastructure on the roads, because we will be more careful. And I'm sure now, as a country, we have seen what floods have done in this part of some parts of this country. Yeah. So I'm sure we will definitely get into that. But the most important thing that I want you to take from here, Zamzam, and I think that is why you have called us to the insight session, is one. There is the individual decisions that parents need to make. When you see like it has rained for 3 days and you have seen that place is not safe, just because the president or the minister has said you have to go to school, of course you assess. But of course I'm sure that once the president has also talked about reopening of schools and the ministry is in line with it, there will be alert systems. We have the digital system, we have mobile phones. I am sure there will be alerts, there will be GIS mapping, and there will be also more forecasting and more immediate information from the meteorological department and our weathermen. So for me, I think I am really for the idea that yes, schools should be reopened, because there is a lot of things that are going on. Parents have their programs which they had already put in place. Of course, if there is a major situation, we can close the schools even tomorrow if there will be another major disaster. But we are not saying that just because we have opened, it is a must that people should stay there, even if there is a, God forbid, even if there is a disaster. And the most important thing is looking at a multi-sectoral kind of an approach. And I think for me, issues of policies, administration, and actually constant communication between individuals, their families, areas where they are living, and just being sensitive to the environment around you. If you know there is a river in Homa Bay, or there is a flooding taking place in a certain place, you don't have to send the children with a car inside that water. You can wait for some days. Even if the schools are reopened, you can move on. But the places where there is no much flooding, I think it will be unfair to keep parents and teachers and the whole economy. You know, the economy of this country also depends on the schools, and education is a major economy of a country. So just shutting a whole economy just because we have pockets of areas in the country where there's a problem, it's not a major thing. That gives us even room to actually attend to those people, because parents will contribute. You have seen the Jamia Mosque and the other Muslim organizations are contributing foods and blanket. It's because people have resources. But if everybody stays at home, the parents are tied down, and the children, the economy of the country can easily shut. Yeah.
Still on that matter, it seems we have learned something from the flood. It is not that something that has happened only this year, it has been happening before, but this one has hit us hard, you know. Maybe since we have learned something, what maybe are the strategies that the government should take in order to take off, or like something to curb the
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's unfortunate that we've been hit hard this time, and I don't think it's something that was not unforeseen, but what we would say is that we tend to forget easily. Yeah, because it's just the other year we had floods in the northeastern part. And at that time we were like, okay, those are those people. When the drought hit those areas, we were like, yeah, that's those are the ASAL areas. So, and we've never learned, we've never come up with any mitigation, we've never. So I think as a country, we are more so of firefighters. So whenever disaster strikes, that's when we come up in arms and everything, and then after it, we forget everything. And then it just remains there in just stories to narrate, and we do very little to mitigate. And currently, as we are you know, even when I was coming, I was talking to a cab driver, and they are like, you know, people don't want to be, you know, to be moved from their places because you know, they are afraid that you know, this is the time when these lands will be grabbed. You know, people are afraid of such. So you know, if we have when we lack that you know, trust with the government, you know, it tells you that if so, we knew very well not supposed to even to construct, to have any structures maybe near riparian lands or near rivers, or where there are water bodies and stuff. But still, we went on and we did whatever we did. And now that you saw the other time, the governor was telling do not construct near rivers. But what were people doing? They were still there constructing, and as the governor was, you know, was talking. So it's a very sad state of you know, affairs. We need as people not to put our lives in danger. Quran tells us, we should not you know, use our own, you know, into distractions. And then secondly, the government should implement, because there are laws, there are policies, they are there, they're in place. But you know, as Kenyans, we are very good at it, but we just shelve them. No one implements them. So we need to come and you know, and act, you know, to save people in the future.
Okay. Thank you so much. Due to time, I think we're going to have a little bit switch on the Friday bulletin. Let's have a little review on it. Looking at we can see that flood has affected so many people. It has also affected family relationships. On matters of family relationships, let's talk about on a forefront page, we can see that CRJ pledges to support Kadhi's court to execute its mandate. The other day, the Kadhi's court hosted an open day for public to participate. Let them ask questions, let them get something from it. Maybe can you talk about the Kadhi's court and its mandate?
Okay, first of all, it's enshrined in the Constitution 2010, Constitution of Kenya 2010, and its mandate is 4 things. One, the marriage. Secondly, divorce. Thirdly, it's inheritance. That's, I believe, it's succession. And thirdly, it's personal matters. of Muslims, and I think we should utilize it as Muslims. And unfortunately, is that not many Muslims know how Qadhi's court operate. Its mandate is upon those 4 things that I've mentioned, and we should utilize it, because even looking and interacting with people, you will hear a lot of things that are happening in in marriage. There are a lot of divorce, and a lot of issues generally. So, and I think the best place where you need interpretation of the court is the Qadhi's court as Muslims. And secondly, when you go to the Qadhi's court, the interpretation is made, under the Islamic law. That's the provision that we've been given, and this also places us as Kenyans, as Muslims in Kenya, in a place where many Muslims, have not, been able to achieve such in the region, and even in some Muslim countries, they have not been able to have such. So I think for us it's a privilege, and for us to have such. And in the story you can see Chief Qadhi, Sheikh Abdullah Halim, he asked for the increase of number of the Qadhis, and they need to be increased, even though there is some challenges when it comes to the infrastructure and the systems when it comes to working in the Qadhi's office.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know if Madam Basra, you'd like to add something on the Chief Qadhi's mandate.
Okay, okay, that's not a topic I really actually want to, because Sheikh is here and he has more.
Okay.
But one thing I wanted to just make a closure. In terms of climate information and what you're really concerned about, opening of schools and the directives that are being given, I think the most important thing is now to rely on also our digital information. Because if we get proper alerts and we get proper updates, it will be much easier for parents to know how to go about the whole process. And before I close, we have always been talking about climate adaptation and mitigation. Maybe if you'll be interested in the future, we can have another sitting which is separate from this, and basically talk about what we can do in terms of climate adaptation, and especially from areas of the region, ASAL areas. You talked about my organization. Our areas is mostly working with people who are vulnerable, but in the ASAL communities. So maybe if you have more time, next time we can talk about mitigation. And now we have the tree planting session with the president, and that is a very strong program, which I think even Jamia and other religious organizations and other non-governmental organizations working in the Muslim sphere should actually really take that as a major program for mitigation, because when you plant trees, you emit, you reduce the green gas emissions, which are really important for really overcoming
I can see that we still have that story on our Friday bulletin, whereby Imam urges environmental responsibility amidst flood crisis. Thank you so much.
Very good.
We still have that one on environment amidst the floods.
So maybe that's an opportunity that we can also talk about more on mitigating, inshallah, this greenhouse, because the greenhouse gas emissions is the most important thing for scientists. If we reduce that, then we will not be able to have these floods.
I think because of limited time, maybe your last word to our viewers back at home, wherever they are watching us.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to also to echo what Imam Sheikh Jamaldeen Osman, the article that is there, that it's our responsibility to take care of this earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, Huwa alladhi khalaqa lakum ma fil ardi jami'a, that Allah created for us everything that is on this earth. So it's our responsibility to take care of it. So we are the ones who have destroyed the environment. So since we've destroyed it, we need also to look at how we are going to restore it and to be in a better place. So it's also a religious responsibility. Thank you.
Maybe on your side, Madam Basra, your last word.
Thank you very much, Jazakallah khairan, for the invitation. I hope that women and the vulnerable groups will really take part in planting trees and actually mitigating the greenhouse gas emissions. And hopefully we will not be able to see the deaths and destructions that we have seen in the recent days.
MashaAllah, I think that is all. There's so much to discuss on matters of education, on matters of floods, how we are going to mitigate all these things, you know. And we can see that it is all our responsibility to ensure that we take care of our environment, we take care of the people who are around us, we take care of our brothers and sisters, because we can see that floods has striking different families, most families across the country, not only the country, Kenya, but worldwide. And thank you so much, Madam Basra, for joining us today, for taking your time, as well as Sheikh Salim Charo. Thank you so much for coming here today and have a review on the Friday Bulletin, as well as some little insight on what we are going through in matters of education. But still, there's so much, a lot to discuss on the Friday Bulletin. We've just tackled a little. But for you to understand more on what is going on around the community, the Muslim community, you can as well grab yourself a copy today in the course of the day, inshallah, so that you can attest to what we are discussing here. It's not like we are just murmuring our mouths, you know. But make sure to have yourself a copy of the Friday Bulletin, inshallah, in the course of the day. That is all for today. Until next Friday, inshallah, same place, same time. My name is Zamzam Ahmed. Ma'as salam.